Hello, everyone. Welcome to Keeping Your Distance, Pwning RFID Physical Access Controls from 6 feet and beyond. Today, we're going to discuss two methods that we used over the pandemic to conduct our red team assessments and cloning an RFID badge beyond that 6 foot barrier. My name is Langston Clement. I am a principal pen tester here at Core BTS, and I've been in the industry for about 15 years now, focusing primarily on RFID, hacking, wireless, and physical pen tests.
I'm Dan Goga. I'm a penetration tester at Core BTS. I've been in the industry for over 5 years now, and I focus on penetration tests and red team engagements.
So the question here is, how do you conduct a physical red team engagement during a pandemic? Now, if you're familiar with doing red team engagements and physical pen tests, you know that a huge portion of that pen test is going to rely on social engineering people, right? At the end of the day, your clients still want you to social engineer their employees to see if you can get in a certain way, right? So it's made it a little bit difficult because, with the restrictions in place of having that 6 feet, distance, social distance policy that, we are abiding by to make sure that we conducted this safely and that we could go through and actually, perform the pen test during this time period. It made it a little bit more difficult because if you're familiar with RFID cloning, you know that you have to stay within, a lot less than 6 feet to actually get close enough to clone someone's badge. So that is, the issue that we came across, and came up with some fun, creative ways that we want to share with you, and for anybody to use on their red team engagements moving forward. So Dan's going to talk about some of the, what RFID cloning is in the first place, if you're unfamiliar with it, and then talk about the differences between the two.
Great. So I'll briefly go through RFID cloning. The purpose of this talk is not to go into the ins and outs of how RFID works and how to clone it. However, it's essential we touch on this briefly. So radio frequency identification technology, or RFID, is common in a lot of physical access control systems. And it's become a very convenient way for building managers and managing organizations to provision access and revoke access with ease. However, this convenience presents some vulnerabilities, as RFID technology and credentials can be cloned under the right circumstances. Now, when discussing RFID technology, it's important to note that there's typically two distinctions made, that being between low frequency and high frequency RFID. So low frequency tends to be less secure and works over longer range, while high frequency RFID tends to be more secure and works over a shorter range. Now, it's important to note that under the right circumstances and with the right tools, both low frequency and high frequency credentials can be cloned to gain access to a building.
So there are some traditional cloning methods that Dan's going to explain, and then we'll show you sort of how we adapted those for our red team engagements during this time.
So there are a few well-documented ways of cloning a badge on a red team engagement, two of them being the brush pass method and the clipboard cloner method. With the brush pass method, you insert a rogue badge reader into a messenger bag and you approach someone, bump into them, or get close enough you can get a badge read. Now, it's a bit difficult to confirm you get a good read on the fly. And of course, this does not abide by COVID-19 policies. Clipboard cloner method presents a better chance of getting a good read. As you approach someone, you hover the badge directly over a concealed rogue badge reader and give it back to the user. But of course, this also requires you to get within 6 feet of somebody. So that led us to a point where we had to develop a way to get that badge credential, get that read on a credential while staying 6 feet apart.
So what we did, is sort of come up with two different ways of doing this So Dan's going to explain the first one that we started toying around the idea that was pretty successful.
So this led us to a point where we developed a way where we'd put a rogue badge reader on the next to a legitimate badge reader at the entrance point to the target location. So we get a rogue badge reader, tape it on with some 3M tape, and accompany it with a message from presumably the building management with organization's logo saying, "Hey, everybody, use this badge reader and not the legitimate one." And the idea here is that as people approach the building, they see this sign and they present their badge to the rogue badge reader, see the door doesn't open, and then they just present it to the legitimate one, and they get access to the building, and we get their credential, and they don't think twice about it. So the great thing is that with a few modifications, this rogue badge reader can be modified with a Wi-Fi module known as the ESP RFID tool, where remotely from the parking lot with a long-range antenna, you can connect to this Wi-Fi interface's web interface and remotely collect the information you need to clone the RFID credential. So again, we are able to maintain social distance, and we tend to get a much better and more reliable read when someone comes up directly and puts their badge right over the rogue badge reader. So as you can see here, and as you'll see when you go through the process of setting this up on your own, the ESP RFID tool has a great web interface where it lists the exfiltrated data. And with that, all from the car, you take that hex value and you put it into your Proxmark and you clone a new badge.
So once you get that data, like Dan mentioned, you'll just see these collecting onto that sort of payload. And that method, we actually used that pretty recently, a few months ago, on a client. And when we deployed it onto the side of the building, we were able to get around 17 badge reads onto that actual device before anybody figured out that something odd was going on. At that point, we had already collected all the hex data that we needed to, create as many badges as we wanted. So if they actually figured out that, somebody had touched their badge to the reader and they try to reset that badge, we still had more that we could use. So the wall reader build is very easy to do. It's very entry level and it's a fun project to do over a weekend. All you're going to need is an HID Prox Pro 5355A. This older model works really well because you can access the screw-in terminals that you're going to need so that you don't need to do any soldering at all during this entire process. So what you'll need to do is go ahead and grab one of those, get some LiPo batteries, a T-tap connector, some wire-to-wire connections, and then some jumper board wires as well. And then you should be good to go. So all you need to do is take your ESP RFID tool. You're going to screw in those wires into the one side of the terminal and take it over to your actual reader, which is the WeGAN interface. So this works directly, and it's built for WeGAN interfaces. So you can use various, different types of companies out there. If you get a used badge reader that has a WeGAN interface, this works very well. And then what you want to do is take your LiPo batteries, and you're going to make a series connection. The series connection is important because you're going to need enough juice to power both your ESP RFID tool and the Wi-Fi that it provides to you and to your actual badge reader. Now, for this implant reader, this one, the smaller one with these LiPo batteries, it lasts maybe a few hours, but you're only going to need really the morning time, or you're going to need, when people are actually coming into the office, and then when people are actually going into the, like lunchtime or something like that. So when there's actual foot traffic with the few people that are actually coming in and out of the office. And so if you take a look at this, this is exactly what the wall reader should look like when you're complete. I had run out of some white wire there, so I just used the blue wire, but the example is right there. This is without the batteries plugged in, but it's nice because once the batteries are plugged in, it makes a nice little compact unit that you can throw 3M strips on the back. Everything's enclosed and it's water protected as well. and then you just slap that on the side of the building with a social engineering sign, and you're good to go. So one thing that happened when we actually deployed this the first time is that it was very odd. We didn't understand what was going on, and Dan's going to explain, this sort of misdirection opportunity that we were provided with after we found out what it did.
So we discovered that when you place a rogue badge reader within about 6 inches to a legitimate badge reader, it presents a denial of service attack where the legitimate reader cannot read or authenticate any RFID credentials presented to it. So we planted this rogue badge reader early in the morning before everyone got to the office, and we put it within 6 inches. And we observed as people presented their badges to a legitimate reader, they couldn't get access to the building, and a security guard had to come and open the door for them, and they were granted access to the building. So this presents a unique opportunity for us to tailgate. Either A, we go in behind the person that can't get in and we say, oh, well, my badge doesn't work either. Well, we don't even have a legitimate badge. Or it directs people to a different entry point of the building where you can tailgate there too, of course, using the pretext of, oh, my badge reader didn't work at the front entrance. Now I have to use the back entrance like you.
So the second one that we toyed around with and that was pretty interesting, that worked really well, is the Gooseneck reader. So if you take a look at this picture of this pedestal, this steel pedestal, what you'll see is that, typically you'll see these at a parking garage, let's say, right, or a restricted entrance of an area where they attach a long range reader to it so that someone can drive up with their car, wave their card, and it will let them in. Now, typically these are cemented and there's drilled into the concrete. So it'd be really hard for you to be stealthy to deploy one of these at one of the sites with a rogue reader. So I thought it'd be really neat. What if we just take this pedestal and just attach it to a piece of wood and make it mobile? And so it's a really simple yet effective way of creating a long range mobile reader that all you need is a piece of plywood, some rubber feet, spray paint, and this pedestal with your long range reader, and you instantly have a nice mobile reader. Now, as you see in this picture, it, sort of in the way it looks, it will sometimes just blend into the environment, right? A lot of people just don't notice that there's something odd, some piece of equipment, right? They don't even know what that is. So sometimes they don't even alert, someone about it, and they just think that's very strange. The way it's sort of angled, and it's right as soon as you walk out of the door, a lot of people that are next to that trash can going for a smoke, leaving for lunch, it sort of sandwiches them. As soon as they walk out that door, they're gonna make that angle so that they come right across, and it makes it a nice easy thing for you to do. And this battery that's attached to it, it's like a 12-hour battery, so it's going to last all day long. It's a very stable thing that you can just set it and forget it, and then remote in. So yep, that's the Gooseneck reader. RIP Goose. Thanks, man. So as you see, there are different heights of the Gooseneck reader. Typically, the 36-inch height works the best because it will give you a different variance between someone wearing a badge on their hip and then someone wearing a badge around their neck. And so what you'll, sort of see as people walk past is that you'll be able to either get that within the range, or as they reach their badge up to hit their legitimate badge reader, it will, brush past it automatically. And again, something that you just deploy in the field, you leave it there, and it does all the work for you. So with the Gooseneck build, no soldering needed again. It's going to be a very simple process to put this together. And you're going to need all these components. Now, we're not going to talk about the step-by-step guide about building the actual base and attaching it all. If you'd like to go see that, check out this link right here, github.com/shocksec. and that's with a 0. You'll be able to get there and look at all of the step-by-step guides. You'll also see that there are templates, so that if you want to cut it out yourself, or you need a reference guide, it is right there for you to download. So once you get all that stuff together, you will do the same thing just like the wall reader. You are going to set up a white and green wire for your data, and that's always going to be the case for any WGAN interface. You're going to have a positive and a negative connection, and then you're also going to connect that pigtail, DC pigtail, directly to the WGAN interface. And so as you plug those two in, it's going to power your large long range reader and your ESP RFID tool, so you can get Wi-Fi access and collect data. So with the HID iClass SER90, as you see here in the picture, again on the right hand side, if you look at it, it's a very simple process. Everything's labeled inside, so all you need to do is find your data wires. You're going to connect that to your ESP key with the screw and terminals using the screwdriver. Same thing on the long range reader, and then you're going to attach that pigtail right there, and then you'll drill a little hole out the back of the reader and attach that nice large battery for you to collect all of your loot. So the gooseneck base itself is very simple. It's only a 16 by 16-inch piece of wood. And then you're going to throw some rubber feet on the bottom of it and use some carriage bolts to attach it. And when you do this, and you actually sit it on top of your piece of wood, you want to make sure that when you're tracing the mounting holes, that you're at least 1.25 inches away from the edge of the piece of wood, because it's going to counterbalance itself, and it's going to make a nice weight distribution, so that when you actually mount your reader, it's going to lean forward. Everything is perfect. I've tested this a lot. It's very stable, and you're not going to have to worry about it falling on a client or anything like that. It just works really well. So trace out those holes, drill your holes, spray paint it. It's very simple. Throw some rubber feet on the bottom, and then attach your carriage bolts underneath. And as you see there, you can put a piece of Velcro on the back of the battery, and you can stick it on the back. It makes it look nice and clean. And then as you see on the right, it's going to be your final product. And to the point of stability, you see in this picture, we actually sat this on a pile of rocks, and nothing happened to it. It stayed there. But again, you're able to deploy it near a smoking station or something where people are going to come in and out of the building, and as they brush past their key fob or their actual badge, it's going to go through, and it's going to collect that data.
So again, the use case for the gooseneck is applied similarly to the rogue badge reader strapped directly to the building. We implant it early in the morning, and then with a long range antenna reader, we're able to access the data similarly through the ESP RFID tool and clone it in the car.
All right, so the best way of going about this that I found, while we're out in site, you don't really want to have your laptop out with your Proxmark and wires going from it. It's a much more stealthy approach if you actually can clone it with a mobile phone. So I'm going to show you the quick and easy way to do this, and the cheapest way to do this while you're on site. So what you'll need is to grab your favorite Android phone or tablet, grab a Proxmark 3 Easy, which is around $60 to $70. That's the cheaper option. The Proxmark 3 RDV4, highly recommend. Amazing tool by Iceman. Go ahead and grab that. It's a lot more expensive, but it's worth it. Get a on-the-go cable, and then download the NProx mobile app. It's on GitHub. There's no root required, so you don't need to know anything about rooting an Android phone. And then all you need to do is, as a bonus, if you'd like, grab this 3D file and 3D print your own case, because as you see in the right hand corner, that Proxmark 3 Easy, it's got all the wires exposed. It looks a little odd, so if you stick this on the back of your phone, people might draw attention to you. Probably don't want to do that, right? So if you put all that stuff together, Dan, you want to explain how you even remind people
Mhm.
how you get that hex code in the first place?
Definitely. So with this arrangement, we again access the ESP RFID tool and we refresh it, get that new hex value, and within and prox, instead of just the prox mark, we're able to clone the badge and through this easy interface. And then of course in the lower left, you can see that that cell phone with the Proxmark Easy is a lot more easy to carry and less conspicuous than a laptop and a Proxmark RD4.
Yeah. So once you do that and you set up your nice little, Amprox app, you plug in the antenna, you're going to run a simple command. In this case, we're going to clone an HID badge, low frequency. And so you just type LF HID clone and insert your hex code that you got from that ESP RFID loop page. So once you copy that over, you just type it in there. So in this case, we're going to type LF HID clone, we enter our hex code, and then it's just going to say done on the screen. It's very quick and easy. And then you type LF search, and then it's going to verify your card data. So once you see it, it'll tell you that this is the HID prox tag ID, give you that hex code back. It'll give you the facility code and the card number, and then it says it's found. So once you're done with that, you're good to go. Just walk up to that door and let yourself into the building. So those are the two methods that we've used over the pandemic that have been very successful for us. Cloning badges from a distance, and it's been a lot of fun. Sort of just sitting back, letting those devices do all the work for us, and then showing the client later that either somebody noticed that these devices are deployed in the field, or that no one even noticed them in the first place. So we encourage you all to build these and have a lot of fun with them. So we just want to give shout outs to everybody that's listed here in our references because a lot of these people, inspired and helped actually build, some of these tools. Corey Harding with the actual ESP RFID tool, and there's some really great guides. So if you're very interested in this and you want to get a little bit deeper dive, highly recommend checking out all of these references here. And this is also listed in the GitHub tutorial. So if you need to go to the links, go over to GitHub/Shocksec, and you'll be able to get all of that information there. So I appreciate everybody watching this video, and we just want everybody to say, have a happy DEF CON and enjoy.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.